So thanks for joining us today. This is the second installment of Chatting with Dave. Today we're doing Ask Dave. This is
Dear
a
Dave.
Dear Dave. That's right. Dear Dave, this is a joint video cast covering UC we actually have two Daves. I am David Maldow, founder of Let's Do Video, and I'm here with Dave Michels, founder of TalkingPointz. So how are you doing today, Dave?
I'm doing great, Dave. I like this Dear Dave concept. That Dear Abby is, so passe, so history. Dear Dave has got a nice ring to it, really. Ring. That's exactly the word I wanted. Nice ring.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be fun. I've been wanting to practice what I preach and be a little bit more interactive. So I like the idea of reaching out to our audience, reaching out to our followers, getting a couple questions, and having some fun with it.
So with that, we've got two questions for today. And Dave, you want to pick one of the questions to start off?
Sure. Let's jump in. This one interests me. Why doesn't Microsoft just kill the Windows Phone? Do you want to give it a? Why don't you start on it?
It's interesting to me. I was listening to a podcast on one of the major magazines or websites, and they were talking about, they were just in disbelief that anybody would ever want a Microsoft phone. And I really thought that was a very shallow response, because I don't think most people care. I think most people really want a device that they love, and that's hard to find. That's why when you go to the Verizon store, there's so many choices, because people have different desires and needs and requirements. And so we want a device that we love, that runs the apps that we need. And sure, there's a bit of a religious battle between iOS and Android specifically, but the vast majority of the world, I don't think, cares. I think the vast majority of the world just wants to access their email and do a couple other things. And obviously, the more apps, the better, and the more of an integrated experience, the better. And that's exactly what Microsoft is moving toward. I think a lot of people interpreted the Nokia layoffs that they just announced as Microsoft was giving up on Windows Mobile, and I actually think the opposite. I really think that this is exactly what they had to do to make it successful. And I'll share more on that, but let me go ahead and get your thoughts on this first.
Yeah, I think I think Microsoft can't give up on the concept. They have to keep trying, and I understand, and I thought this was a good question. I read a bunch of articles, and there's a lot of people who studied this a lot closer than me who have all of these arguments why Windows Phone is terrible. Everything that's wrong with it, and I can't argue with it point by point. But no matter how bad it is now, I don't think Microsoft can give up on it, because I think they want that unified experience, and I'm partially there. I have an iPad and an iPhone. And I got to tell you, there's something magical when I'm reading a book on the iPad and the wife says, let me borrow the iPad, and I hand it to her and I pick up the iPhone and I'm reading the same book on the same page. Or when, even though I'm Windows on my desktop, when I open a bunch of tabs in Chrome, I'm reading all my press releases and I close it to read in the other room, and I open it on my iPad, open up Chrome, same tabs, same work thing. But it's a little disjointed because I'm Windows here and iPad there. Obviously, Microsoft wants it to be that same same experience, same UI everywhere. So unless they're going to give up on mobile, which they can't.
I got data here. They cannot give up on mobile. Just recently, second quarter 15 computer shipments were published, both by Gartner and by IDC. Gartner says that shipments of PC shipments fell 9.5% to 68.4 million. IDC, which does it a little differently, they say that shipments fell 11.8% to 66.1 million for the quarter. And so either way, you're looking at about a 10% decline in PC shipments last quarter, and that's year-to-year comparison of year-to-year in the quarterly numbers. Now, a couple things to keep in mind is that in the last quarter, I don't think these quarters exactly line up, but the last quarter that Apple published, they sold approximately 60 million or 60 to 65 million iOS devices. And so the iOS devices are basically shipping about the same number as PCs in general, but iOS devices are still increasing. And of that number, 60 of the 60 million, 65 million they don't break it out, but let's just say it's about 50 million of those are iPhones. And so those devices are increasing. PC sales are going down. And if you think about the average price, the average price of the iPhone is going up, and it's probably quite a bit higher now than the average price of a PC, which has been going down. And so, and that's just price. So we got shipments, and we've got price. Now let's look at the last number, which is margin. And of course, iPhone has a lot of margin in it. And so this is not something that Microsoft can ignore. Of course, they have to be in mobile. The question is, how do you get there? And the problem that they've got is that they're not Apple. They don't have the lion's share. They can't command the high margins right now. They've got to do a different strategy. And so if you look at it, Android came out. People forget this. Google introduced the first Android phone after the iPhone came out, and now there's more Android phones out there than there are iPhones. And if you walk into a Verizon store, you'll see a lot more iPhones to choose from than you will iPhones to choose from. And so the question is, can Microsoft do this all by themselves? The answer is no, and they realize that. And so they're going to allow and encourage, they've always allowed it, but they're going to encourage other partners to start selling Microsoft phones. And, the partners used to do this. HP, Dell, Lenovo, they used to make Microsoft devices, mobile devices. They all pulled out when Microsoft bought Nokia. So Microsoft is basically righting a wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's particularly hard for them because they're approaching it in the other direction. Apple started with the phone, and they got that experience, and they got everyone to love it, and then they just made it bigger with the iPad, and they could potentially just keep making it bigger and bigger, and it would still kind of work for us. Whereas Windows, that familiar experience of Windows it doesn't translate to a phone. It's harder to shrink it down. So they tried to work us there by having this Metro thing with Windows 8 that everyone hated, and they're really stuck with giving us that same experience, whether it's PC, and obviously they want to move away from the PC, but it doesn't translate, and people get very angry when you change Windows on the desktop. So it's going to be hard for them to get there.
So some of the new Android phones that are coming out, I just read an article on some of the new ones coming out. They're not even out yet, and they literally have more power than a lot of desktop PCs now. So that space is really getting a lot of power. What they showed at Microsoft Ignite, they showed the concept. They demonstrated this on one of the keynotes of using a mobile device as a desktop. And what they were demonstrating was they put the mobile device into a docking station, so it had a full-size keyboard and a full-size monitor. And Windows was actually, in Windows 10, was actually able to detect that it was in a docking station and change its mode of operation. And it went from being finger-based with larger icons to basically mouse and keyboard-based. And, the idea of having, you talk about this single experience, and right now you're excited about how your applications can sync between your devices. Why not just have one device? Now, this was Ballmer's vision with Windows 8, and I thought Windows 8 was going to be pretty big. Windows 8 obviously didn't become big. Ballmer didn't get to realize his vision, but it looks like Nadella is going to get to realize Ballmer's vision with Windows 10.
Yeah, I'm still not ready for Windows 10. I'm still getting ready for Windows. I'm still learning Windows 8, but from what I'm hearing, I don't think it's gonna. Windows has this. Microsoft has this tick-tock cycle. They have a release we love and a release we hate. So Vista we hated, 7 we liked, 8 we hated. So 10 we're supposed to like now.
Well, I don't know because you skipped 9, and so they skipped 9. So now I'm really confused of whose turn it is. But actually, you said you just rebuilt your computer. I'm about to rebuild my computer. I install so many of these collaborative apps and whatnot. My computer becomes unstable after about a year and a half or so, maybe a year. So I'm just about ready to rebuild my computer, and I'm really torn. I don't know. It's currently running Windows 7, and my laptop that I use for travel is running Windows 8. So I'm kind of debating: do I go ahead and put on Windows 8.1, I guess it is, or is that just silly when Windows 10's around the corner? Do I just wait, or do I just hey, Windows 7 is no disruption. I've got everything ready. I got it down, and I'm really torn. I mean, this is. I don't think I've ever been torn before between 3 different versions of operating systems about what I want to install.
Well, I think 10 is a few months away, and I think they're gonna try to force it on us. So.
Well, I just saw that it's already been released to manufacturing, and I remember the old days when they released to manufacturing, it was still like 2 months. I don't understand what release to manufacturing exactly means or does, but nothing's manufactured anymore, and so I don't know. I'm thinking it's going to come out in August. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think that's what I heard too. I
Okay.
think August is the buzz, and yeah. So in that case, it might make sense. But it'll be. I'm curious to see whether they get it right for what they tried to do with, A was supposed to be that bridge between, it has the two versions, and everyone hated it. I kind of got used to it. It's not that bad, but it has the version that looks like a big phone, and then the version that looks like Windows.
Right.
And supposedly is going to get this right. And I think the vision is, instead of, and I think this is where you were going with what you were just saying, it's not about, I don't want to have all these different device synced. I'd rather just have one device, or even a better way to see it is one portal to my stuff, my online stuff. And whether I'm on a big screen or a little screen, or a tiny screen, it's that same portal. And maybe it is all powered by my phone and it's just a matter of different screens. But you can see they're thinking of that with that new hub. It's just a really big screen with Windows 10. So I like the idea of that one UI just scaling all the way up and down, and that's how we get to that internet extension of our brains.
So we both feeling pretty good about Windows Phone. I don't have Windows 10. I've never had a Windows phone. What I assume you don't have one either, because nobody has one. But assume you don't have one either.
Yeah, I'm on my phone.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I guess if we who are completely unbiased, obviously toward the Windows Phone, are kind of bullish on it. I think it still has a pretty decent opportunity. And I think one of the big missing ingredients that I think people underestimate too is Office 365. And Office 365, people forget it, is relatively new. Microsoft is rushing out all these really nice applications for Office on Android and iOS, and Outlook came out for iOS. And people are just like, wow, Microsoft's really changed, and look what they're doing and how great they are, and embracing other platforms. And that there's some truth to that, but realistically, they didn't have Office 365 before, and they weren't about to put applications on the Apple Store that Apple would take, 30% commission on and whatever. So they had to put on basically free apps that worked with Office 365. And that's really the way the mobile world works, is you back in cloud services, which is why we always talk about cloud first and mobile first. And so now they've got Office 365 up and working, and working well. Now they got Windows 10 coming together. And so it's just the dream or the vision that I think Ballmer had with Windows 8 was right. It just wasn't possible back then.
Yeah, I think Office 365 is going to do what Windows 95 used to do back in the day, when they were kind of cheating and everything only worked and you had to buy it and you had to get everything with it. It's that same sort of thing. Office 365, it's cheap. It's like $7 a month for a single license. And, obviously Enterprise has a lot more features, a lot more expensive. But even if you only liked Excel, right? Because people feel iffy about Outlook, people feel iffy about Word or whatever. Everyone loves Excel. Even just for $7 a month for Excel, you're going to get it. And then it has Outlook, and it has Word, and it has PowerPoint, and it has going to be Skype for Business.
Yeah,
So
but keep in mind that $8 price is not for the mass market. Well, actually, it is for the mass market. It is not for enterprise. And the prices go up quite a bit very quickly. But that's Microsoft's stated direction. I think they really want to see everybody in Office 365, and they're going to have less and less interest about selling big software releases, which I think makes a lot of sense. But okay, I think we've covered this one. We have another question for Dear Dave. Let's see.
Yeah.
I got it. I got it here. Okay, you ready for this one? This goes to you first. Dear Dave, why is it still easier to make a phone call instead of a video call?
That's the question we've been asking forever, and it's a question that needs to get the right answer before we can really be where we want to be with video adoption. But actually, I think this is a good news, bad news, good news story. I'll start with the bad news is when it comes to...
Wait. You said good news, bad news, good news, and you want to start with the bad news? So you mean the bad news, good news, good news? Is that the... Well,
yeah, let's do it that way. Okay, bad news, good news, better news. How about that?
Okay, there you go. Okay.
The bad news is when it comes to direct dialing, we're still not there. It's really hard. And technically it works. Technically, I could be on one platform, you could be on another. You could have my SIP address and you could dial me direct if I have it on. But for most people don't have that capability. Most people don't have something on their desktop that can dial out direct like that. There are some solutions that, if your entire company is on that solution, it has a great directory and everyone can dial direct. But I could dial anyone in the world direct with the phone. So the bad news is with direct dialing, we're not there. But there's two ways we use a phone, right? There's direct and there's for conferences. I would say for conferences, for group meetings, it's easier on video. We've actually surpassed. I think it's easier to join a VMR, a virtual meeting room, than it is to join a conference.
That was my first reaction to this question was the assumption that it's harder. I've got a son in college, and he uses Skype for a lot of communications, and where he's spending the summer is very low bandwidth, and so he's having to do a lot more instant messaging than video, or voice for that matter. And so he's doing more voice instead of video. And so he had my other son install some sort of application so they can do instant messaging back and forth. And I said to my older son, I said, "Why didn't you just use Skype? You're already using Skype. Why do you use Skype?" And it didn't even occur to him that he could use Skype for instant messaging. It's like, yeah, why just use it for video calls? It never even occurred to me not to use it that way. And so, I look at his experience and to ask, why is video calling harder? He's going through hoops to figure out how not to do a video call.
Yeah, and the tools are there. We're just not using them right all the time.
Well, yeah, I guess that's there. That's true. I do think though, because I'm a big proponent of using video like you are, and I try to use video calls much more often than audio calls. And I do find that there's a lot of resistance to it, but it's not technical. I find the resistance to it that, and I'll admit that I had it too, and I've just kind of learned to ignore it. But video is it's a two-way street, right? And a lot of people get hung up on their hair and their makeup and their clothes, and they don't like to be facing a camera. They don't want to be on camera, and so they have this whole mental baggage that, well, I don't want to do video. I just want to do an audio call. And as soon as you introduce a video call, there's all these excuses and hemming and hawing about why they can't do it. And I find, I had the same thing when I started trying to use video more. That's kind of a natural thing because we grew up in an era of voice. We grew up with the phone. That's what our parents did. That's what we did as kids. And, so we often talk about the millennials are different. But I forced myself into it. I said, I'm going to try to make every call a video call for a month. I did this a couple of years ago. And you just kind of, that stuff just falls by the wayside. You just, and I start getting frustrated when I get invited to an audio bridge. It's not as engaging. I don't pay as much attention because I go off and check my email and do other things. And actually, I wear my wireless headset and I go off and make my lunch, and I'm a master of the mute button. And I do all these things. I can actually be very productive on an audio call, but less engaged.
That's clearly a big problem. And that's funny. I wasn't even thinking of it from the cultural point of view. From a cultural point of view, yeah, it's definitely easier to get an audio call going because you send anyone a phone number and they'll jump in. And with a video call, you might have to do a little convincing, although it's gotten a lot easier to convince people. But from a purely technical point of view, when you think about the call dynamic, if you invite me to join your VMR, if it's a group meeting, we're not putting aside the direct dialing question, I get an email, I click the link, I click it. If it's a solution I never used before, there might be one more click where it says, "Are you okay with the download?" 2 clicks at the most. If you send me if it's an audio conference, I got to pick up my phone. I got to dial the number you put in there. Then I got to dial the 9 extension with the thing. And then it asks me my name for no reason at all. I give it the name and it never says it. And then there's that awkward moment of people are talking. Hi, I don't want to interrupt, but I'm in. It's not an easy experience. Where jumping on video, click, I'm in. So
another aspect we got to talk about here is the impact of things like WebRTC, where a lot of these new applications, and I'll even throw Cisco Spark into this one, are video savvy, but not telephony savvy. Now I know Cisco's got plans to do that, but it's hard to make an audio call. In fact, I had this exact experience with Cisco Spark. I was using it in this is a while back. Things may have changed, but I was using it in Google Chrome, and of course they have the codec for Firefox. So I was trying to call somebody, and I just want to do audio, and it was saying, no, you don't have the right codecs. You have to use Firefox. It's like, I don't need to use Firefox. It's an audio call. You have the right codec. I can do this. But the browser wasn't designed to understand that. The browser kept on saying, no, you're trying to make a video call in Google, and we're not going to allow it. And so my point is that these applications are more video savvy than they are audio savvy. They don't even think about audio. And a lot of these WebRTC apps, they don't have any audio capability, or rephrase that. They don't have any PSTN capability. All they have is a video URL.
Yeah, and that would make life a lot simpler, right? If it's just my video application, and there are some that do it. I bounce around, I use them all, but it's really convenient if whatever you use for video, you could just also use that to dial up for audio. And although the vendors that are doing it should get credit as an industry, it should be a checkmark thing almost.
Yep. All right. Well, those are two questions for this episode of Dear Dave. On my site, on TalkingPointz.com, there's a thing up on top. Contact Dave, and send me questions. And I look forward, Dave. I hope we can keep this going and do another Dear Dave session. And I'm pretty sure the Dear Dave is actually referring to me. But but if you have a different opinion, that's for you to consider. But how can folks send you questions?
Yeah, people can find me at letsdovideo.com. Please sign up for the newsletter, and there's a form on the site to send me questions, or you could follow me on Twitter. You could always send me a message on Twitter at letsdovideo.
Excellent. All right. Well, with that, thank you, Dave.
Thanks. This was fun.